You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.
Ian, look at this.
What, it's a police box. What on earth is he doing here? I mean, these things are usually on the street. Feel it. Feel it, you feel it?
Faint vibration.
It's alive.
Earth Station Who, a fun mashup celebrating nearly 50 years of the Doctor Who universe. Hold tight. You never know where the TARDIS is going next.
Hey there, Whovians, and welcome to another episode of Earth Station Who. That's right, we are back, and hopefully you all survived a good Dragon Con and a little bit of holiday around the world. And we've got a great one for you tonight. We're looking back at the Big Finish era. It's been a long time since we've actually talked about the Sixth Doctor. So we thought, when better to do it but the One Doctor, which, you know, is an interesting story. I listened to it probably 15 years ago. It was one of the first Big Finish audios I actually heard. And it started me getting more and more respect for Colin Baker because, you know, a lot of people do not like Colin as the Doctor because of what happened during his era, the episodes, and some of the stories were just stinkers, I'm sorry to say. But I think during his Big Finish run, I think they basically showed him in his true light, and it actually brought my respect for him and opened my eyes to a lot of the era that he was the Doctor. And I actually liked this Doctor and Mel story. It was actually a lot of fun, and it's going to be very interesting to hear what these folks' opinions are. Got a great crew. We have a brand new person with us tonight. Let's, of course, welcome Ciarán Moffatt. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's the first time you've been on the show, and thank you for stepping up to the bat with this one. Tell everyone a little bit about you.
Yeah, I'm a podcaster and voice actor from Adelaide in South Australia. So I'm recording a bit in the future from you guys. Yeah, I love Doctor Who. I've been watching it for years. My father loves telling the story, especially at my wedding, about how the first time I ever saw Doctor Who, I was probably about 2 days old, and I was being bathed in front of the TV while it was on, and that's it. He's like, that's been ingrained ever since.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, no. So I love Doctor Who. And of course, here in Australia, there was, in the 90s, it didn't really exist. No one heard of it. It just ended and then came back in 2005. No one really cared in that period, apart from me, apparently. So
you were holding the torch up for everybody. Yeah. That is awesome. Tell everyone about your podcast and such.
Well, actually, I run a podcast network. Like yours. So yeah, it's called Ciarán & Co. We've got a bunch of podcasts, a really cool interview podcast called Levers, a space podcast called Mates in Space, which is doing really well at the moment. D&D actual play podcast called Best Left Forgotten, which is fun. Mm-hmm. And I'm currently in the middle of working on a Monty Python podcast called I Came Here for an Argument.
I think you're going to do very, very well with that one.
I
definitely think so. Well, welcome aboard. It's great to have you.
Thank you so much.
And of course, our regulars are here. Of course, let's say howdy to Mr. Mike Gordon.
Howdy. Yep, voice is still scratched from Dragon Con. Sorry.
Aww.
Oh, too bad. So if he sounds kind of rough and, you know, tumbled, you know, he sounds like he's got a really deep voice now because blame Dragon Con on it. So it's okay.
Yeah, just a teeny bit of cred, but still left over. But yeah,
cool. And of course, Ms. Mary Ogle.
Hi, everybody! It is fantastic to be here.
It is awesome to have both you guys back, and I'm glad Mike survived. And you know what? I think it's going to be a lot of fun to talk about this one. News-wise, there is no new Doctor Who news right now. I'm hoping this is the calm before the storm, as they like to say.
That would be nice.
Because literally we're almost exactly 2 months before, you know, the anniversary. We don't even know when it's airing. We don't even know dates yet.
I read recently that Strictly Come Dancing, which is a massive dance show in the UK, will be start airing soon. And the general finger on the pulse is that they'll put out a trailer with the first episode of Strictly, because that'll be the most viewers they can possibly get.
All the eyes are going to be on it, because I remember they did for, I think it was Jodie's Regeneration episode, they did the trailer for it during a sporting event over there and everything.
It was Wimbledon.
Yeah. So
I stayed up till 4 a.m. waiting for the set to be over so I could see the trailer.
He is dedicated, my friends.
You had your priorities straight. Who cares about freaking sports events?
No, I want to see the Doctor Who stuff. Yeah. So when is the Strictly Come Dancing coming?
It's in the next couple of weeks. That is something I did not prepare, but it'll be in the next couple of weeks. You mean I have to do work for a podcast before I come on it? Oh, great.
We never do, so it's okay. That is awesome. So yeah, we hopefully will get, probably by our next episode, maybe some news on the trailer. You never know. Fingers are crossed. If this was only a video podcast, folks, you'd actually see all of us have our fingers crossed. Mm-hmm. So it's pretty cool with that. So let's jump in. Let's jump back to the year 2001. And we are going to be looking at the One Doctor. So it features the Sixth Doctor and Mel Bush. And it's written by Gareth Roberts, actually, and Clayton Hickman, and was directed by Gary Russell. So some pretty big names behind this. And so it's interesting. I'm going to go around, and I know we all have, different histories with the Sixth Doctor and everything. So, of course, I think, Mike, this is your first time listening to this, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah, this is my first time listening to it. I am I haven't seen, before we started podcasting, I hadn't seen anything or heard anything with the Sixth Doctor. So this is all new to me. I like how we're still continuing to dance around the Trial of the Time Lord. So since we're looking at the Sixth Doctor, we're like, what else is there? So
much.
Yeah. So much more. This was, despite it being co-written by a trash human being in Gareth Roberts, I think that,
I tried to ignore that part.
Yeah, I know, right?
I was trying to whitewash that part, folks.
No, don't whitewash it. We should talk about it, but
yeah. Anyway, this was, my experience with Big Finish overall has been mixed, but this one was really fun. I really enjoyed this one. The premise was familiar, and yet I thought clever. Some of the stuff was, not great, but it was really fun to listen to, and made me appreciate Colin, not just Colin, but Bonnie Langford again, because really Mel is not high up on my list of companions whatsoever. But she was fine in this one as well. She wasn't, annoying at all, or at least much. I thought it was pretty fun.
Cool. Mary, what about you?
It was funny. I was listening to this and I was like, wow, this sounds familiar. Have I heard this before? And yes, I had heard it before a long time ago. It was one of the first Sixth Doctor ones I listened to. And I think, as Mike said, it's one of the ones that got me back into Big Finish with the Sixth Doctor, because I think that Colin really shines in Big Finish.
Very much so.
He gets some decent scripts, and he's allowed to not play the kind of bizarre figure he played as the Sixth Doctor. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed him a lot.
No,
I
very
don't
much
enjoy
so.
the person who wrote this, though I actually do enjoy some of the episodes he's written.
Of course.
So yeah, and we'll talk more about that later.
Very much so. Ciarán, what about you?
I mean, Big Finish is my jam, as the children say. It's I love this story. I heard it probably same as you about 15 years ago when I first started really listening to Big Finish. I absolutely adore it. Great performances, and yes, like we're dancing around Gareth Roberts, but the thing is, horrible human being. But there are very few people who know as much about Doctor Who as him and Gary Russell and Clayton Hickman, who was the editor of the Doctor Who magazine for 15 years. It is a brilliant. It's made for fans, this story. It is 100% made for fans. It is a pastiche of Doctor Who stories. Some of the, like, one of them at one point says, "Oh, I come from the planet Singlet 4," and you just say you've just chosen a random word. It's brilliant. I love it. Generios is the main planet. Generic. Bonnie Langford, her condition for coming back and doing Big Finish was that she never have to scream, because she hated that all she ever did in the TV series was scream. And in this story, she takes on a very sort of doctorish role.
She was great in this one. She was really good in this one. Absolutely
love it. I loved every bit of it. One thing we haven't mentioned is that Matt Lucas was in it, not that you could tell.
Right.
Yep, he plays the Gelloid and the Cylinder. So even the Gelloid, it just sounds like this is Doctor Who written by people who know Doctor Who, but making it sound like the half-heard Doctor Who thing from someone who doesn't know Doctor Who. And I've now said
like
those two words.
Every blob monster that you've seen in Classic Who.
Yeah, I absolutely, it is a fun pastiche. Like, even because of 2001, they're even kind of poking fun at the fans. Like, there's that one gag where the Sixth Doctor kisses someone, and then he says, "Oh, no, the Doctor wouldn't possibly do that," which of course was the argument at the time after the movie.
Exactly.
Yeah, not just a Doctor wouldn't do it, but a Time Lord wouldn't do it. Yeah, like I mean,
they don't do things like that.
He kissed you. That is so not a Time Lord. No, not at all. I enjoyed this. I really, really did. Like I said earlier, this actually was my road into Colin on Big Finish, and I've loved, a lot of his adventures, and there's so many, because we did Jubilee a couple of years ago on the podcast, and that was the second one I listened to because people kept on telling me, "Oh, listen to Jubilee," because the story of the Dalek was basically, based off of that. And few people actually said this one was based off, that they based the next Doctor off of this one, and which I don't see the similarity at all. Just somebody who was thinking he was the Doctor, but in this one, it's Banto who is pretending to be the Doctor to, steal money from people around the universe and such.
Yeah, it's not the same plot.
No, not at all.
Not really.
No, and so it was interesting, but
and this one is a different tone too. It's completely tongue in cheek, all the way through.
Oh, all the way. The shelves of infinity, come on.
That was so great.
People
Space
underestimate.
IKEA.
Yes, exactly. People underestimate how funny Doctor Who can and should be.
Now, some of the things in this one felt very Douglas Adams in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah,
I get that vibe as well.
Definitely an influence there.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Exactly.
Gareth Roberts wrote the novelization of Sharda, which was the unfinished Douglas Adams story.
Right.
So he rewrote that in a Douglas Adams way. Of course, the other Douglas Adams scripts were later adapted by James Goss, who is a much better writer and a much better human being. So
that is so true and everything. But no, this was interesting. I enjoyed this, and I loved the Sixth Doctor's reaction when, he said, "What's going on?" It's like, "Oh, they're celebrating the Doctor." And he was like, "I don't remember being here," or, and it's interesting because he always has a sense, if he runs into another Doctor, that he knows it's him, another Time Lord.
Mhm.
And, they play on that a lot in this one. And, and he, basically shuts that down right away with this. And I like that. It wasn't any question during it. Is this a future version of the Doctor that we haven't met yet, or something like that? And we didn't even have that. It was just completely shut. This guy is Banto Zane. He is not the Doctor. I did like the character though of, Sally Ann. I love, her. She was like so going from, oh, I'm going to be a mustache twirling bad guy's assistant, into being, I'm in love with the Doctor. He's so wonderful. He's so heroic.
Yeah, the one thing,
Absolutely.
the one thing that this does as well is it really plays around with, I mean, much more so than well, Classic Who wouldn't touch a lot of these things, but New Who maybe a little bit, but even so, it does make fans a little bit, queasy. Not just the kissing scene at the end, but also the fact that Banto, who's masquerading as the Doctor, and his companion are, I mean, nothing but sexualized in this. Like, they are just like, I mean, the rule of no hanky panky in the TARDIS does not apply to the Stardust.
No. You can hear the flushing of the Stardust from all the way out here.
There's lots of innuendo and just outright.
Yes,
this is what's going on.
Absolutely. Like, it's just almost every single phrase of theirs is like just littered with, no-nos for Doctor and companion relations.
Oh, the whole time they were, left alone while they were trying to get the money, they basically were in there making out, and it was just like, oh, wait, we got to stop. They might be coming, type thing. But it was like they were sucking face the whole fripping time.
It's one of those things, isn't it? I think that's to sort of, it's a wonderful narrative device to sort of show that these people clearly are not the Doctor and the companion, because you can't possibly do that. But also, right. I think it's a case of Big Finish. Like, this is 2001. This is when Big Finish was getting experimental with the things they were doing. And I think audio gave them a license to wildly deviate from what they would normally do. I mean, now they still have those rules. I entered one of the Big Finish writing competitions in the list of things that you cannot have in your audio is as long as my arm.
Really?
Yeah. There's no romance. Well, like romance, but there's no sexualization, no drugs, no drinking, no swearing, no, like, just basically keep it G.
Gotcha. No snogging.
And there's a lot of drinking in this too. So.
Oh, very much so.
Yes.
It was interesting, and I loved how through history, the Doctor's TARDIS became a porta potty.
Man, they go full out on that joke, like with audio cues and everything. Like, they
make
really
it clear.
Yeah,
I loved the audio. I loved the way they synced the flushing to the to the sound of the TARDIS rotor.
Yes.
And I mean, interesting trivia thing. The first time a toilet sound effect was used in Doctor Who was slowed down and distorted for a Yeti's roar in The Abominable Snowmen. It's a toilet flushing.
Oh, that is awesome. And I loved when they were all stuck in the Stardust, and it's like, I believe this is actually smaller on the inside. It was really well done, and there were so many good points to this. Was there anything any of you guys didn't like about the story?
I mean, I'm not going to give it 5 stars. I mean, it's fun, but it's your typical, like, sort of like quest story. And to be honest, the robots making furniture, I think that was the one joke that, like, an SNL skit, went on a little too long. And so I wouldn't say everything was a winner, but overall it was a lot of fun, and I don't want to like come down hard on it or anything, but what worked well, and there was a couple things that I did, I think it could have been a little shorter actually. I think I was expecting I asked you, Mike, I said, it's like, oh, this is just an hour. And you're like, sure. And then I look at it, it's like 2 hours. And I'm like, no, this is longer. This is 4 parts. Plus a like hidden Christmas message at the end. But it's like, and it's funny because it was released at Christmas, and it really feels like a Christmas like episode of like New Who. It has that same kind of tone to it. It's actually more successful, I think, than some of the Christmas episodes that were done later, the Christmas specials. But it has that same tone to it, which I really appreciate.
Yeah, it's very lighthearted. There's I mean, this is not a profound episode.
No,
there's not a lot of depth here. You're just on the plot is a very generic plot, but it's not the point. The point is to just sort of sit back and, I mean, there's a lot of fan service here.
I think that is the point. I think that is the point. The generic plot, like it is so generic. Like this is the framework of Doctor Who. We're just showing you in a harsh light that bits of Doctor Who that you kind of don't want to admit are formulaic, but are really formulaic.
Right. Yeah, that's actually what I'm trying to say, is that it's not, this is not supposed to be a convoluted, profound, you're going to go away thinking about this and wondering what happened for years afterwards. It is simply a formula, which is fine. Because it's very enjoyable. And I don't think that, every episode has to be, sort of mind twisting. Sometimes you can just sit back and, have a little escapism. And everybody's making fun of everything. I mean, so, yeah, which makes it almost even weirder that Gareth Roberts is such a controversial figure in Doctor Who, because, wildly transphobic and misogynistic.
Oh, big time.
Got kind of, he basically... The BBC told him to walk away twice. He has not even worked for the BBC since 2014. He has worked for ITV. But he got booted off a book project that he was going to write for a short story anthology, Christmas anthology for Doctor Who, until the other writers said they would walk away if he was a part of the project. And that included Neil Gaiman.
Yep.
So, yeah, he is not somebody who's well-liked.
Yeah, it was the Target collection, sort of a retrospective of the old Target novelizations. I have a copy of it. I remember when that came out, and I remember being very hurt when that happened, because I did love Gareth Roberts' writing. And he's one of those names like in Doctor Who that just pops up that you may not always remember exactly what stories they wrote, but you recognize that name.
Yeah.
And I loved Gareth Roberts' writing, and then this happened. I was really hurt, and I was like, well, yeah, this is awful. Of course he should walk away from this book. He shouldn't have anything to do with it. And yeah, it is very unfortunate. But yeah, you can't. You can't defend someone who says the horrible things about transgender people. You just can't.
Yeah, they were. I'm not going to repeat it, but one of them was especially bad. And this is a man who, I mean, he wrote 6 episodes of Doctor Who, and he wrote a bunch of Sarah Jane adventures. He wrote books. He wrote comics. He was very intertwined.
He's also a gay man. Being a gay man, I cannot understand. I'm a queer person. I can not understand how another queer person can possibly have a problem with transgender people. I don't understand how that fits in their head. But yeah.
I mean, I'm also a queer person, and it always amazes me when I see the oppressed turn around and become the oppressor. It's just, I mean, how can you not see that you're doing the exact same thing that you're supposedly fighting against? But unfortunately, human beings are very complicated.
No, some people just bite off their finger to spite themselves, and it just sucks.
Yeah, I mean, and he is so ingrained in Doctor Who. I mean, we've got. I think we've got a couple of his episodes still on our schedule that we're going to do really soon. So
we can bring it up again.
And yeah, unfortunately, and especially when, I especially hate to see this kind of behavior in people like that are associated with things that are usually so hopeful about the future, whether it's Star Trek or Doctor Who. You kind of expect more from people who are participating in that, because they're showing us ways of the future that are hopeful. And it always confuses me when somebody, when I find out whether it's a fan or somebody inside associated with a property like that's that's hateful. I'm like, how can you reconcile that? Like, it's one thing, like, how can you be a Doctor Who fan and think this way?
Exactly. It's like the old, when did Doctor Who / Star Trek / any property get work? From the beginning.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it was.
Exactly.
It's about a socialist traveling through time, helping people. What do you want?
They've never tried to hide that. I mean, that's like the premise of the whole show.
So many people complain and say, "Oh, Doctor Who's so woke now," and everything. Where have you been for the last 60 years? Hello.
Yeah. Well, what I say about wake up.
Exactly.
Yeah. Don't be sleeping.
A happier, on a nicer tone. I suppose I kind of want to talk about Gary Russell, who directed it, which nobody knows the Sixth Doctor better than Gary Russell. He's written so many Big Finish and also directed. Interestingly, he's also, I believe, the director of Big Finish Creative, who's doing the animated reconstructions of Doctor Who. That's just a side note. But he's also written dozens of Sixth Doctor novels. And I think his direction, more than anything, brings out the best in Colin Baker. Because Colin Baker, when he wants to be, can be an absolutely phenomenal actor. Unfortunately, yes, he wasn't given quite the best scripts back in 1986. And yes, Trial of a Time Lord is a little bit of a mess. But yeah, Gary Russell and Colin Baker.
We haven't gotten there. We've always said that when it's time for us to wrap up the show, our final episode, we're going to be Trial of the Time Lord.
Oh, God. Talk about going out on a high note, I guess.
That sounds about right. That definitely sounds about right.
But yeah, I'm glad you brought up the direction, because I really noticed that in this whole series of stories, what a difference it made to have good direction. Because to be honest, I have heard some Big Finish that did not have some great direction, and it just made an enormous difference. And also, I will say, the sound quality was really good on this, and it's old. It's from 2001. We have listened to some more recent Big Finish where the voices, you can't hear them. The music is too loud or too grating.
I mean, I don't want to get into a thing of Big Finish is my career end goal. Although I don't want to get into a habit of defending them or condemning them. Look, it all comes down to people. Like, there are certain writers that you pick out, certain directors, and I mean, the people who do good, they move on to good things. One of the best Big Finish directors and producers they've had in the last decade is a guy called Scott Hancock, who did the War Master Adventures. Brilliant director. He is now the script editor on the new series of Doctor Who. He's got Douglas Adams' old job. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. He's amazing. He's also gorgeous, and I have a massive crush on him. But it's brilliant work.
That's awesome. That is awesome. No, that's cool.
That's something that is a turnoff for me too, because sometimes in Big Finish, like, they'll do effects on a voice or something like that just because they can, and sometimes I can't understand the words or the dialogue because there's too many effects in play. I didn't feel that way in this one. I thought that all the effects were really well done. The voices were great. The alien voices. I mean, the only one that was, but I mean, it wasn't even that bad. The blob or whatever that
the
thing.
Jelloid.
Yeah, the Jelloid. Yeah. So, man, I loved Matt Lucas's cylinder voice. That was like, that was really impressive. But it's, I didn't recognize it being Matt Lucas, but listening to it, it sounded like all important. But in a sort of like in a sort of tongue-in-cheek way. And when I found out that it was Matt Lucas, I was like, of course. Like that's like even this booming voice that, I wasn't sure to take seriously. It still has a place in this. Cause it wouldn't have worked otherwise. But, and yeah, just the little, meta jokes about, using the Delaware theme for like the third episode or something for Doctor Who. That was like, I was like,
such a mix up.
What is happening here? Like, this is really weird. But that's something that only like real, like you have to like look deep into like the vaults to know exactly what that is.
Mm-hmm. Did you also notice that at the beginning of the fourth one, you could hear the theme, like you heard
ramping up. Like, yes, I did hear that.
And everything. So it was like, these guys know what they're doing. And everything. They were planning it. It was really awesome.
And it's just part of the joke. It's part of like this whole like self-referential thing. I love I think there's a dialogue that one of the characters says, why are we just in a quarry? And I was just like, because it's Doctor Who. That's why you're in a quarry.
Mm-hmm.
At one point, he says he's a corridor veteran as well, which is the other mark on the bingo cards.
Or that he runs, he runs a lot, not because he's trying to stay in shape, but just because he's always just being
running
chased
away.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, when Neil Gaiman wrote The Doctor's Wife, he specifically wrote it so that half of it could be filmed in a quarry, the other half filmed in corridors.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just that much, that kind of fun. So, I mean, despite, I hate, we talked about the co-writer and everything, and I hate not recommending work by people who I don't admire. And yet, I hate to take this one off the table because it is so fun.
It is fun. And that's why I decided that we were going to review this instead of one of the other ones, because this is a good entry into Colin's foray onto Big Finish.
Yeah, I think the pluses outweigh, and plus I don't know. I don't know how Big Finish works or whatever, but I don't think Gareth is still getting paid for like this or whatever. Maybe, I don't know.
Even if he is, I don't want to punish, because there's a lot of people that go into making a production.
Yes.
And I don't want to punish other people's good work just because Gareth Roberts is who he is. That's not fair to them.
Yeah.
To the best of my knowledge, Big Finish isn't working with him anymore. And I don't believe there's any sort of residual work with audios like this. People get paid for their roles. And
that's it. Yeah.
So so far as I'm aware anyway, Nicholas Briggs, feel free to message me and confirm or not. Also, let's talk.
He's one of our regular subscribers. So
I don't know if Nicholas and Jason are avid listeners of ours, but if they are, like,
I'm a huge admirer of Nicholas Briggs, and I love. You mentioned the sound effects they use on voices. I'm a massive nerd about that. I own my own Mooga Fuga, which is what they use to make the Dalek voices, as well as a bunch of other voice mod things. As I said, Big Finish is my end career goal there. Nicholas, if you are listening, or anyone at Big Finish, I'm not picky. Scott Hancock, if you're listening.
That's awesome. That is awesome. All right. Any final thoughts before we go ahead and rate this one? Because we've covered quite a bit already.
Yeah. I just want to also, we haven't really talked a lot about it, but I do think that Christopher Biggins and Claire Buckfield did incredible as as the quote unquote doctor and companion, the faux doctor and companion, like Banto Zane and Sally Ann. I thought they were really, really fun. To the point where I was like, I would like to see them again. And I was kind of like, even though Banto Zane is a trash human being, not as trashy as Gareth Roberts, but as trash human being. I was like, oh, come on, Doctor, you're not just going to leave it. Like, I did think that was a bit harsh. Like, I was like, they were after the Doctor all along. And I mean, we've seen what enemies of the Doctor do. And I'm like, that's pretty brutal, letting him go in your place. So I didn't think he had done anything that was quite that bad, warranted. But so I would love to see a follow-up episode of this where, they are they encounter each other again or rescue him or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah, well, he does say that he's going to go rescue
He
him
does
at some point.
Yes. But I mean,
he's just not rushing to do it.
Exactly.
Yeah, he's not rushing at all to do
He has to get a hi-fi system and entertainment center for the Jello.
Yeah, it was almost
He's got
as
things
if
to do.
they were suggesting that the fact that he, was secretly married, and when that came out, like, that was justification for him to actually be taken in the
Murdered
Doctor's
and
place. And I was
tortured
like,
and murdered.
I was like, I don't know. I did feel like that was, that was a bit harsh, but I would love to see, like I said, a follow-up would be fun.
I love that his last words were, "My wife is going to kill me."
Mm-hmm.
And that was just awesome. No, there was definitely, and I loved that when Mel was starting to tell about the proposal, that the Doctor gave to her, and then Sally Ann was like reciting word for word verbatim, and it was just like, yeah, that was just awesome. The way they did that was just great. All right, Mr. Mike, since we started with you, how many stars? 1 out of 5 being the best, 1 being the worst.
How many Starduses are we giving?
Starduses tonight. How far are you going to flush?
How many flushes is it going to take? You know what? I would give this a 4. This was a lot of fun. There's a lot of I can imagine myself listening to this again and picking up on different other things that I missed, because there are so many jokes that as I learn more and more about certainly the Sixth Doctor era as well as other Doctor Who aspects of Doctor Who, I would imagine that I would listen to this again and go, oh yeah, now I get that reference, So I do think that and this is not going to mean anything to anybody except for those people who listened to Earth Station 1 this week as well, where we reviewed Justified, City Primeval, but Sally Ann reminded me of Sandy.
Yeah, I could see that. I totally can see that. Yeah.
She reminded me of Sandy. I was kind of like, we were saying about how we wish Sandy would have like that whole beach, get that beachfront property at the end, and I'm glad that Sally Ann got that at the end of this one. So
okay. Mary, go ahead.
Boy, I think, I really enjoyed this one. And so I'm going to give it a 4, even though
I know.
Part of me is saying Gareth Roberts does not deserve that, but it doesn't matter. I mean, laying him and his problems aside, there's a lot of good work here, and direction and acting, and the side characters are great. Everybody's just going all out to make this a really fun series of stories, and I enjoyed it greatly. So I think it deserves a 4.
Okay. Ciarán.
I think easily I'd give it a 4. It is clearly, again, laying aside things, it is written well, directed well, acted well, really beautifully fleshed out, and it is written by fans for fans. So I would give it a 4, but with the caveat that if you're new to Doctor Who, if you're new to Big Finish, don't start here. This is where you go after you've got a bit of experience to fully appreciate it. But yeah, easily for the seasoned Doctor Who fan, it's a 4, and you're going to enjoy it, and you're going to laugh.
very
Mhm.
much so. And also, if you hadn't watched any of the Colin Baker stories, don't start with this one because you're going to be so disappointed with the TV part because Colin is so good in this. He's great. He's great. So I'm going to actually go ahead. I'm actually give it a 4.5. Just because I can't give it a 5 because of the writer, but I think Colin shows his colors in this. He shows how good of an actor and how good he could have been on the TV series. Same thing with Bonnie. I think Bonnie, and I'm going to just come out and say this, I didn't think she had real chemistry with Sylvester a lot. And I think, that was kind of almost like a forced putting together because, everything that happened with Colin getting fired and everything and Sylvester having to be put in real fast. And because Sylvester didn't start shining until, Ace came on board. And, I'm sorry to say that. And I'm looking forward to seeing Bonnie come on with Shooty because she's coming back. And I think, it's going to be our time to go Bonnie, go Mel, just no carrot juice. Come on, it's going to be okay.
This helps a lot with that. I mean,
Very much so.
when the news came that, Bonnie Langford was going to appear in the new series or special or whatever, I was like, okay. Now I'm kind of like, ooh.
Yeah, exactly.
Yay.
She was on par with the Doctor in this. I thought she was great and everything. And I'm glad, like Ciarán said, I'm glad she didn't scream at all with this. And because that's how we saw her with all the different the two doctors she was working with. And I didn't want to hear that, especially if I was wearing headphones because I was working and everything.
Noise canceling headphones with Mel's scream would have, done some damage.
You think, you think hearing the River Song theme is bad. Hearing Mel's scream with headphones is even
Surely
worse.
the Missy theme is the worst because it starts with that really loud klaxon.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. These two haven't started listening to the Missy stuff yet. So.
You're in for a treat. I love them.
Yeah, you want to come back on the show when we review the first season of it?
If you'll have me, I'd love to.
Yes, we are officially inviting you back, my friend.
Yay!
We'll talk off the air and we'll get dates and stuff. So awesome, kids. I think that is wrapping it up. Couple little things wanted to talk about real quick before we get going. For those who are interested, we did a video review for Dragon Con for the Brit Tracks. We talked about, of course, what Doctor Who spinoffs we would like to see. We talk about Doctor Who spinoffs, past, present, and future. So it's a lot of fun. You could find it up on the Brit Tracks of Dragon Con's YouTube channel. So we are up there and we'll have a link to it in our show notes. So definitely, please. And I think Mr. Mike actually shared it up on the Earth Station Who Facebook page. So, definitely.
Yeah, I think so. If
not, it will be there before this goes live. So I can almost guarantee that. So it'll be a ton of fun. And it was a lot of fun. We were joined by the fine folks at the Legend of the Traveling TARDIS podcast. And it was great having Christian and, of course, Melanie. And, it was just a ton of fun trying to guess because we don't know yet. The rumors are still going around that it's going to be Unit, which I would die to see for a series. So,
well, Big Finish just cancelled their Unit audio. Like they just finished their Unit series. So and also finished River Song. So
yes. I've heard that one floating too. So I'll be very, very curious. And I know Alex has already said she wants to keep going with River Song. So she's, it's a paycheck. So, actually like, so definitely folks, if you are interested, check out the video. It's a ton of fun. We talked for about an hour and you get to see these smiling faces, who you only usually hear are crackling, wonderful voices. So it's always a great, great time. All right. Let me thank everyone for being here. Ciarán, you have been wonderful on the show. Thank you. You passed your audition.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. You are welcome back anytime. How can people find you?
Cool. They can find me on Facebook and Instagram on @MoffattNation or my network @PZinaCo.
Awesome. We'll definitely have links to that up on our show notes. And of course, let's thank our regulars, Mr. Mike Gordon. We made it through another one, my friend.
We did, and as always, it's my pleasure.
Anything you want to promote or anything? Or
just the Earth Station one, and for a complete report, post-con report of the events at Dragon Con, we will be recording that next week.
Yes, sir. And should be available probably about a week or so after this episode goes live. So you definitely could check that out. Or we will be having a live recording actually on Tuesday. And I think that is the 18th, if I remember. Or is that, Tuesday the 19th.
Tuesday the 19th, yeah.
Tuesday the 19th at 8 p.m. Eastern, we will have a StreamYard going. So definitely check it out. It'll be up on Facebook, YouTube. You can definitely find it. So it'll be a ton of fun. And Mrs. Mary Ogle, thank you as always, my friend.
Oh, thank you. This was a really fun one to listen to.
Oh, very much so. And you want to promote your stuff real quick?
Sure. You can find me at maryogle.com or on Etsy at eVision Arts. And let me just say, Big Finish, please call Karen.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yep. He deserves it. He totally deserves it. So, folks, feedback at Earth Station Who is the best way to find us. If you have not subscribed yet, why not? Come on. Earth Station Who is now available up, of course, on Sirius XM. That's right. We are up there now, folks. And we are also up on Pandora. So anywhere fine podcasts are found, Earth Station Who can be up there too. I think that's pretty fun. So please definitely subscribe. And, we always love to hear from you. Feedback at earthstationwho.com. And of course, our Facebook group. Always great. Tons of fun, artwork or memes or just news that usually gets egg on our face anyway. It's up there. So definitely check out our Facebook group. We would really always appreciate it. Until next time, my name is Mike Faber. We will see you. Be well. And the 60th anniversary is only 2 months away. Just remember that right now.
Woo!
And we're done. Boom.
You have been listening to Earth Station Who, a bi-weekly pop culture podcast dedicated to all things Doctor Who, featuring talents from across the universe. All topics on the show are the sole opinions of the individual and are used for entertainment value alone. You subscribe to our podcast up on iTunes, Stitcher, or follow our blog at www.esopodcast.com. You can also follow us up on Facebook, Twitter, or Google+. If you enjoyed the show, please leave feedback up on iTunes.
Good afternoon.
May we be of assistance, sir?
Yes, I'm looking for a podcast for someone who likes that 1960s headache music.
Don't these podcasters have atrocious taste?
Sir, may I recommend this podcast by Monkeeing Around? I guarantee you migraine.
I never heard of Monkeeing Around.
You never heard of Monkeeing Around?
He's never heard of
Monkeeing
Monkeeing
Around.
What does Monkeeing Around sound like? I'll take it.
He took it?
He took it.
Monkeeing Around, a podcast about the monkeys.
This has been a broadcast of the ESO Network. Be part of the crew and help support our shows by donating to our ESO Patreon or by shopping at the TeePublic store, which can all be found at www.esonetwork.com. The ESO Network, your station for all things geek.